Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 236 of At Odds with Wrestling. Joe and Adam here. Adam, hello. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Joe. And as the EVP of the soon-to-be-named network's wrestling Patreon wing, I had a busy day today. I had some Patreon content to preview. A little unexpected, but wondering if you want to kind of let people know what it was that I got to listen to today.
Well, I didn't see your picture on that fancy infographic that went out, so I don't know how real this statement is. But yeah, so I had mentioned it last week that my friend Ian Valfor, who had worked with Chikara, amongst a bunch of other places, and it's so funny, you know, not to spoil too much of it, but I ended up doing an interview with him. It was primarily to be about his time working on The Ashes of Chikara, which we watched here on the podcast, 3 months ago? Something like that? 4 months ago, maybe longer?
Yeah, it's been a while. You know,
right.
I miss Chikara with all this WCW stuff.
Oh, listen.
Neither here nor there.
That's neither here nor there. So he last week was posting some stuff out that he had found on like a drive when he was, you know, going through whatever. And he put it out into the world. He's like, oh, I'd love to go on a podcast and talk about this sort of stuff, but it'd have to be behind a paywall. And I'm like, wait a minute.
We have a paywall.
Yeah, I have a podcast that goes behind a paywall. So we chatted up last night about all that Chikara stuff and even more stuff. And not a knock on him. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, hey, this is like the 5 or 6 things I want to hit, right? If there's anything that you're uncomfortable with, tell me now, right? The only things that I wish that he talked about, because he's lived like quite the life, right?
Yeah.
And before he was involved in Chikara, he was like a big person in like the New York improv scene, and he's worked with on a regular basis like Donald Glover, Tracy Morgan, people like that.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and he didn't mention any of that on the show, but I didn't want to be like, come on, tell your Starfucker stories, you know? Because that's not what they are. It's just like, because when he worked with Tracy Morgan, it was a big deal because like Tracy was coming to work out stuff for like hosting Saturday Night Live or whatever it was. But like he worked with Donald Glover, like when Donald Glover was just like a guy who was hustling, and he got hired as a writer on 30 Rock.
Okay.
You know, so like this was like 2 years before Community, and he was just a guy. And then, like, he's like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it anymore. I'm writing for a TV show. I don't know if I'm going to make it anymore. I'm the head writer for a TV show. I don't know if I can make it anymore. I'm on a TV show, you know?
Yeah.
So he was, like, there to see his rise, you know? And they're still friendly, you know, as friendly as you could be with, like, a Hollywood movie star, you know? But, yeah, I think I thought Ian had a lot of good stories. And I think we're going to release it, early next week, you had said?
It's going to be Monday after Easter at noon at the Face of Patreon level on our Patreon.
There you go. I don't know what the level that is. Is that the $40 level?
Yeah, it's just $49.99 a month.
Oh, okay.
You know, just a reasonable amount. No, it's at the $5 level. And for all those people that are always saying they want a podcast with Joe Sposto talking about Chikara, like Unleashed, the chains are off on this podcast. I listened to it. A lot of shooting, brother, on that podcast. But for those people that have asked for that type of thing, that is available. And, you know, hopefully that'll twist your arm into getting some more people on there. Not necessarily like a weekly thing or even a monthly. But I think, you know, you teased, and we won't spoil it here with some other people you'd like to have a similar conversation on that podcast. I think that, you know, let us know, like, you know, let all of our patrons listen to this interview. Like I said, it went nearly 2 hours, maybe a little bit over 2 hours. It was a really interesting listen, even for me not knowing anything. Just imagine the people that were invested in Chikara listening to it. But hopefully this opens up the door, Joe. You never know. We'll just maybe we'll open up a higher tier.
Not to spoil something that we discuss on that either. Again, go listen to it when it comes up on the Patreon. But I mentioned reaching out to someone to ask them to come on to talk about it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I'm gonna wait to message them until we're recording this. to see if I get a response. Within seconds, I got a no.
Oh,
yeah. And I completely understand why. And when you listen to the Patreon, you'll know who it is, and you'll probably know why. We pretty much speculate on their why, but yeah. No, it was good catching up with Ian, though. Obviously, it's just he's lived a very and not to say that he's retired or it's out to pasture or whatever, but being in the improv scene, being in that level in wrestling, and being at the forefront of YouTube. And he mentions it in passing, but he worked hand in hand with the current crew that does the angry video game nerd stuff.
Yeah.
The previous video game company that he was with before the one that he is with now, they were working with James to make his game, and I think under his time with them, they put out 2 or 3 other games. And if we were a video game podcast, that's another whole kettle of fish that we can get into.
Awesome. Well, yeah, like I said, don't give it all away for free, Joe. Everybody go check that out Monday, the day after Easter, noon on our Patreon. And one other thing, Joe, I want to say before we move on regarding Patreon. Earlier today, I was editing and finalizing another episode of Vintage at Odds.
All right.
And I just want to say that this episode features very heavily you spending probably 15 minutes trying your hardest to get me to not only start listening to the Jim Cornette podcast, but you are selling me on how great of a listen and how much your views align with his. So it's a really interesting listen, granted from 5 years ago.
Right. But
when you listen to it just on its own, it's very funny.
Listen, we all grow and we all change, And sometimes it takes, a lot of big, giant road signs to point out who the sexist, racist, homophobes are.
Absolutely. But
and listen, I make no apologies for my longtime fandom of Jim Cornette, but the best I could do is just kind of learn from my mistakes. And hopefully if you listen to the classic At Odds whenever Adam puts it up for this time, you give me a bunch of shit about it.
Yeah, that episode will be dropping on the 15th of this month, but there's already 3 other episodes available, and they're all snackable, 30 minutes or less.
Cool.
But that's it for the Patreon hard sell today, Joe.
All right. Yeah, get out of the way. We won't even have to mention it at least 6 more times during the course of this show.
Hell yeah.
All right, let's get on to the actual show.
And now, At Odds with Wrestling presents This Day in Wrestling History.
All right, this day in wrestling history. It's a big one. A lot of big stuff happens this day in wrestling history. Adam, this day in wrestling history, in 1984, if I say the names to you, Ken Patera and Masa Saito, would you know the significance of them?
Obviously, I know who Masa Saito is, of course. But again, that's 6 years before wrestling started, so no, I have no idea.
Okay. So it was on this day, and again, we're all very old, 39 years ago, that according to police reports, that this is the day that they threw the rock through the McDonald's window and got arrested.
You say that like I have any idea what you're talking about.
You've never heard this story before.
No.
So, again, very clearly, Ken Patera, Masa Saito, working for the AWA at the time, were looking to go get something to eat, and the McDonald's had just closed, and they said, sorry, we're closed. So, when I say they threw a rock, Ken Patera was a former Olympic strongman. It was more of a boulder than a rock.
Mm-hmm.
Threw it through the window of the McDonald's. The cops showed up. They got Saito and Ken Patera back at their hotel. They went to trial in June of 85, and they both did 2 years in jail. And 87, and again, I know it's before wrestling was a thing, 87, Ken Patera comes back to WWF as a babyface, and does an angle because he was a big, nasty heel and Bobby Heenan was his manager, and they do a whole angle where, like, Bobby never helped him while he was in jail.
First, it seems like a gross overreaction to not getting McDonald's, so I'm going to assume they were both on some kind of other substance.
Sure.
Yeah. And was this in the United States, I assume?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, just because obviously with Saito it could go either way, you know?
Right. But yeah, that's a famous. So this is another thing. They talked about it on one of the more recent. What were the Vice ones like?
Dark Side of the Ring.
The
Territories.
Tales from the Territories. Right. So they did the AWA one. So Ken Patera's on the AWA one, and he tells his side of the story of this, and to a person, every other person at the round table, to his face, call him a liar.
All right.
It's just like, he's like, oh, it didn't happen that way, and it wasn't what they said, and the people were rude to us, and they kicked us out. And he gives like this whole big long story, and everyone's like, you're full of shit. Yeah. It's just so funny to like see them call him out on his bullshit. You went to jail. You were wrong, right?
When he threw the Rock through the window, did the Rock have more than $7 in his pocket?
Oh my goodness, poor Dewey. He was just a little boy back then.
Yeah.
All right. So also on this day in wrestling history, in 1997, World Championship Wrestling held their Spring Stampede pay-per-view from Tupelo, Mississippi. A little bit of an uneven card. When you look at the main event, you have Kevin Nash versus Rick Steiner for the World Tag Team Championship.
Wait a minute. That doesn't make sense.
Do you remember around this time they showed it on TV? It was a deal that Six had filmed on his video camera. Like, it was black and white footage of the Outsiders running the Steiner brothers off the road in their car.
I've seen a lot of footage that Six recorded, but I don't remember that.
All right. So Scotty was hurt, and that was their way to do an angle to write Scotty off TV, but still do a match for the tag titles.
Okay.
Main event is Diamond Dallas Page versus Macho Man in a no holds barred, no disqualification, falls count anywhere match. And this is the match where DDP beats Macho Man.
Okay. Is this the one that had the build up with Macho cutting promos from the crowd?
Yep.
Okay. All right, that I remember fondly.
And as over as DDP was getting, right? Earlier in the year, he had been building himself up in 96. End of 96, he gets courted by the NWO. He gives Hall and Nash the diamond cutter, and he's hot. He's a hot baby face. But it's this moment, I think, of him. It's a main event of a pay-per-view. He's beats Macho Man clean. This is what made DDP a star, this match.
Yeah, because Hogan wasn't exactly doing the honors for anybody.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, beating Macho Man, beating him clean, NWO top guy. It's not like he was beating Ice Train or something like that. And,
Right. Now, also on this show was a match, a 4-corner match to determine the number one contender for the WCW World title. And it was Lex Luger versus the Giant versus Booker T versus Stevie Ray.
One of these things is not like the other.
Well, it was weird because, at the time, Luger and the Giant were a tag team because they were also one of the teams that were going after the Outsiders for the tag titles, and Booker T and Stevie Ray are a tag team going for the but for some reason they throw these two at the time tag teams in a 4-corner singles match to determine who the number one contender is. But that's not what this match is famous for, Adam.
All right.
Do you know? I don't know if I should play it on the show.
I think you should, since you're thinking about it.
Do you know the promo that Booker T cuts before this?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, let's not play that. Never mind.
You sure?
For whatever reason, that promo, just because it's Harlem Heat with Sherry, I felt like it was a couple years prior to this. But I that's hard not to know.
Okay, it's a very famous moment of the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I'm glad you shouldn't have even asked me if we were going to play that. I think that's a hard no.
I'd lead you there, Adam. Because again, if you said yes, you're uncancelable, so it's fine, right?
Well, not. I don't want to test it that much.
All right. So then, of course, we have our 1998, 25 years ago, head-to-head Monday Nitro versus Monday Night Raw. Nitro's a 3-hour slog still, okay? We're getting matches like Goldberg versus Hammer, Lex Luger versus Barry Darsow, Scott Steiner versus Sick Boy, right?
Yeah.
It's just a nightmare. On Raw, however, Raw is still taped. Raw at this time is still, for the most part, live one week and taped the next week. Okay? Not a great show on paper for matches, but it's at this point where WWF Attitude Era is kicked in. We're going away from matches on TV, and everything's about the storylines.
Yeah.
And we have two very important moments that happen in Attitude Era history. Seemingly unrelated, but we're going to play them and talk about them here. So, leading up to WrestleMania, Vince McMahon was asked how he would feel about Stone Cold Steve Austin being the world champion, and Vince said, "Oh, hell no," right?
Yeah.
So then Austin comes out on Raw the next night, doing his Austin thing, but Vince wants Steve to be a corporate champion.
So what I'd like to do, if we could get one of the fine officers of the law to take a picture of you and me together, because I got my new suit on. We're seeing eye to eye, and I just wanted maybe you and me to take a little snapshot.
I told you, Jer, he is really sucking up now.
He only wears that when he goes to see his lawyer.
Oh, my goodness. Vince or Austin?
Austin. Well, both.
This way. All right. Why don't you put it on, Vince? You don't mind. Might as well.
Look at that smile.
Ain't that pretty? What a corporate picture. That'll probably be in the corporate.
There does need to be a figure of Austin in
now,
the
you
suit.
know, the old Steve Austin, the old Stone Cold Steve Austin would probably tell you to take this camera and stick it up your ass.
Hey.
Wait a minute.
But that's just the old Steve Austin.
Yes.
That's not the new one.
I know, but that was the old Stone.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you.
That was the old Stone Cold. The new Stone Cold wants you to take this camera and get the film developed, because this is the absolute last time you will ever see Stone Cold Steve Austin wearing a ridiculous suit like this son of a bitch I got.
And Vince was nice enough to hold the mic for him.
Wait a minute! The hell with a corporate image! Sorry, Vince! The rattlesnake! Ah! Rattlesnakes don't make corporate pets! What's he doing now?
Oh, but hell, you gotta remember, son, what you see is what you get with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Back when Vince was able to make facial expressions, he was pretty good.
You're damn right, and I ain't gonna change for nobody. I got one last thing to say to you, Vince. Hell,
There's more of a visual moment, but if you remember.
like I told you before, I said it to someone else, I'll say it to you. DTA, don't trust anybody. Now what I want you to do is bow down for Stone Cold.
All right. So there we get the big thing. Austin gives Vince the big kiss off. We've been building to the moments of the Mr. McMahon character on TV and everything else like that. And I'm sure there will be no repercussions next week on Monday Night Raw live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
No, not at all. Vince doesn't hold a grudge.
Right. Now, also on this episode of Raw was another moment. Now, Adam, I could play this whole 7-minute segment, but I'm going to spare you and the listeners of this, so I'll let it speak for itself.
Right.
I guess you've probably seen Terry's back, and I hope you saw WrestleMania, because it was a tremendous match, and I'm very proud of it. And Terry was laying there on the bed with his belt, and he said, "Cactus, I'm going to be all right, because I consider this the last match of my career See, Terry had always wanted to retire as a WWF champion, and he said, Cactus, it's all been worth it. But we don't have those belts now, do we?
And that was Terry's last match.
I'm not going to get into the reason why, but I will say that when Cactus Jack was laying, and I was conscious, and I could move, but it was very hard to move, and I was not very far from being unconscious. And when I looked at Terry Funk, well, I heard something in my ears that I can tell you the truth, that kind of made me sick. There was an announcement being made thanking the fans for coming to the WWF event, and they said something about Stone Cold Steve Austin. And people started chanting his name. And it's funny because when I came here 2 years ago and I was Mankind, there were always people saying, why don't you just be Cactus Jack? Then I came out in tie-dye and some white boots, and they said, why don't you just be Cactus Jack? Well, I gave you Cactus Jack. I gave you every bit of energy I had.
It was taped, so they beeped it.
And when I was laying there helpless,
taking off his neck brace,
you chanted someone else's name.
Cactus almost sounds bitter here.
This is not a knock on Stone Cold Steve Austin. Hey, I'm happy he's the champion. He may not admit it, but we've known each other a long time, and he's been my friend. But what you did to me and Terry Funk laying here in the middle of the ring was not only distasteful and disrespectful, it was disgusting.
They're beeping goddamn.
And I'm going to give you a chance to make it up to me, because I'm going to accept a group apology right now.
This will go well.
Cactus is he's asking these fans to apologize for cheering Steve Austin.
Well, I can finally say for the first time, after 13 years of blood, sweat, and tears, that it's not worth it anymore.
What?
It's going to be a long time before you see Cactus Jack in the ring again.
What is he talking about? JR,
All right.
Sad Mick Foley promos are always good.
Also unrelated. He said we won't see Cactus Jack ever again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Adam, I'm so excited for next week.
But we won't see Cactus Jack again.
I almost called an audible and said we're not going to watch the Miz movie for your homework.
Well, you don't have that power, but go on.
We're going to watch the April 13th, 1998 Monday Night Raw. And that's going to be our homework. Because I'm going to watch it next week anyway.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that is a holiday for a lot of people in our circle.
Well, again. So watching this at that time, obviously the internet was not what, the internet was what it was, but it wasn't what it was. And this comes out as taped, and I think at the time they were like, oh, well, Mick is going to take some time off because of the injuries and this, that, the other thing. And, nobody knew what was coming next. Mm-hmm. And now with hindsight, 25 years later, I can't wait to relive what happens next.
Well, luckily it lines up with our podcast recording, know? Otherwise it's going to stink when this stuff lines up on a Tuesday,
Well, we're going to, when there was that Tuesday Raw last month or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
I might almost finagle things so that we record on the day of the Over the Edge pay-per-view so that I can talk about that match. I might just, if it lines up with the schedule of me assigning homework, we're going to take a break from WCW in May toward whatever my last week in May is going to be. And we're gonna watch 1998 Over the Edge WF pay-per-view, and that's the homework. So get ready for that, like a month and a half from now.
Okay. So I have a month and a half of WCW to suffer through.
Yeah, well, listen, I got to look at the schedule, and I got to look at the pay-per-view schedule. I think, listen, the episode of WCW Saturday Night I'm assigning here coming up is a good one.
All right, if you say so.
All right. So enough about. Oh, there's one more thing. Oh my God, one more thing. Look at me like a goddamn dope. 9 years ago today was WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans.
Okay.
And the only thing that, okay, sure, this is when the Undertaker's streak is broken, right? Whatever.
Yeah, who cares?
This is when Danielson wins the title.
Oh, I thought you were going to say this is when Cesaro won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal.
I was going to do a bit and make you name every winner of the Andre the Giant Battle Royal since its inception. See if you could do it.
I definitely couldn't, but I saw somebody tweet out something the other day when it said that like 90% of the winners aren't with the company anymore. So I started trying to think of past winners, and I remembered like not Bret Hart, Jesus, tap dancing, Christ, Matt Hardy. Amazing that I was thinking of Bret Hart and I said Matt Hardy. That must be similar wrestling styles. Gronk's friend.
Oh my God!
Remember Mojo Rawley won it once.
Mojo Rawley,
yeah. But yeah, those are the two that jump out at me, and obviously Lashley this year. But it's obviously one of the most worthless things.
Madcap Moss,
he won it.
Okay, so wait, so right. Claudio,
yeah,
Big Show,
okay,
Baron Corbin,
okay,
Mojo Rawley,
yeah,
Matt Hardy.
Yep.
Braun Strowman.
Okay.
Jey Uso.
Jeez, I have no memory of that.
Right. Madcap Moss.
No memory of that.
And then Bob Lashley. I remember the Madcap Moss one because that was one of the. So the Jey Uso one is the one I wouldn't have remembered.
Gotcha.
I have no memory of him. You know what I mean. But like that was toward the build toward main event Jey Uso.
Because, like, yeah, I get that. Like, and all the ones where it's a big guy who just stands next to the statue crossing his arms to look like Andre, like, those all, like, I remember that stupid bit. But, like, the Cesaro one is the only one that almost led to something, because didn't he become a Paul Heyman guy a couple days later?
Yes.
And then, obviously, that never went anywhere. But I was pumped for him at the time, because it was like, hey, they're going to push Cesaro.
But the Madcap Moss one, I remember because he was on so he wins it on the Friday on SmackDown, and then he was on the pre-show the next day for Mania, and they had his name wrong on the Chiron. And this is when he was Corbin's guy, and this was the beginning of him being like, I'm the guy who tells Corbin jokes.
Yeah.
And then Corbin becomes like a bum. And then, I don't know, anyway, but Madcap Moss, like, he's still with the company, right?
Yeah. Now, quick, do all the Fabulous Moolah winners.
No, there was none.
Yeah, did they, obviously they scrapped the name, but did they have more than one Ladies Rumble or Battle Royal?
I don't think so.
They got to have time for Snickers commercials. You know? Couldn't have them on the show.
Right.
Anyway,
but yeah, Danielson winning the belt. Obviously this doesn't happen if Punk doesn't leave WWE.
Mm-hmm. Once again, Phil is a giver.
Right. Oh, yeah. Because this was supposed to be Batista winning the title. Like, Batista had come back at the Royal Rumble that year with, like, the specific creative that it was going to be him winning the title. If I look at this card, Danielson probably wouldn't even have been on WrestleMania because it would have been Triple H versus CM Punk. Mm-hmm. It would have been Orton versus Batista for the title, with Batista winning.
Yeah, they would have maybe given Danielson like a pre-show match or something.
Like something. He would have been nothing, right? Yeah. And it was just with, like, the crowd was getting behind Danielson, toward the end of 2013, beginning of 2014. And I'll never forget that there was an episode of Raw or SmackDown for no reason, they gave the yes chance to Big Show. And like the commentators were putting over, like Danielson was not on the show at all, and Big Show came out and was doing the yeses, and the commentators were putting it over like it was the Big Show's thing. And it was just like, they do not want like they fought and clawed, and then like you'll remember like the lead up, they do the thing where like they take over, like Danielson holds Raw hostage and all this other stuff. Stephanie's
fans in the ring.
Yeah, and Stephanie's cutting the promos on him. There's a B+ player and all this other stuff. And they will tell you, and maybe we'll get into this a little bit later on, they will tell you that this was the plan all along. And it most certainly was not. They were forced. And conversely, some people will say the fact that they acquiesced and allowed this 9 years ago to happen is why they'll never allow it to happen again.
Because I think that was maybe a little bit before they were able to convincingly change the crowd noise on television.
Yes.
And they realized that if they had a main event of Batista versus Orton, it would just get booed nonstop. Like, it would just be like, you would not be able to hide it or talk over it.
Right.
You know? Well, thankfully they've learned from their mistakes, and they're a great company now.
Yes. So, hey, that's enough history stuff. Let's get into more recent history. Let's talk about the last week in wrestling. Luckily, there was a ton of wrestling. Where would you like to begin, Adam?
I'm gonna start with WrestleMania. I'm gonna do a couple broad strokes. I said last week that like I had not much of an intention to watch it aside from the Cody Roman match, and I did have both nights on, but I kind of came in and out of paying attention to it. I didn't dissect the matches as much as, Tim and Marcus did over on Viewer's Choice. But, like, there was a couple matches that obviously I enjoyed. The triple threat with Walter and McIntyre and Sheamus. The women's title match with Bianca and Asuka. The Usos versus Sami and KO was fun. But as I said last week, the one match that I was going to watch no matter what was Roman versus Cody. And I say it all the time, Joe, that when wrestling is unpredictable and when something happens that I was not expecting, that's when I actually enjoy it. And the fact that they allowed Roman to win and just derail what pretty much everybody in the wrestling world other than you thought was going to happen and have Cody lose, I was so excited after the show was over that, like, holy shit, what was such a paint by numbers move didn't happen, and they let Roman win. And the fact that like he was just eating up everything with the press conference afterwards and tweeting out videos of him whispering, "Acknowledge me." Like, it was just such great heel stuff. And it left me leaving Mania being like, you know what? This WWE, maybe I've been giving it a hard time. Maybe I've got to go into things with more of an open mind going forward. And, maybe they're just not a bad company and I'm just not understanding them. And so I very excitedly waited until the Raw after WrestleMania, and then other things happened, and we'll get to that. But when I came out of Mania, I was like, you know what? Other than the Roman Cody match, there's not a match that I will ever want to see again. But like, I enjoyed it. And I saw somebody tweet out that WrestleMania entrances are to like casual WWE fans as Super Bowl commercials are to non-NFL fans. And I was like, I kind of relate to that because I don't care about all these competitors, but I like the entrances. I like the pageantry of WrestleMania. And as far as that goes, like they had a really good 2-day showing that they most definitely didn't squander the next day.
Well, okay, squander the next day, we'll get to squandering it the next day, right? And that's the one thing that WWE does right, is they do WrestleMania right, okay? Whether you're going to go back and watch this stuff again, if you watched at the time, it was a spectacle that was enjoyable and that you're going to remember at least something from, right? I didn't get a chance to watch night one live as it was happening because I was out in Washington, D.C., seeing Sarah Milliken with my wife, but I was getting the updates like going down and coming home and everything, and it's not like I'm gonna have anything spoiled for me, but like night one was kind of like not the night for me, okay?
Same.
Except for the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Usos match. And then it was one of those things where because there had been speculation, right? Because, we were under the impression that Charlotte and Rhea was going to be the main event. And then there was even a little bit of speculation just because the way that the graphic went up, that Cena and Theory was going to be the main event, right?
Yeah. And that's what I thought last week, yeah. Right.
And then they officially announced at 5:00 on Saturday that the main event was going to be the tag title match. And it was at that point I was 100%, and last week on the show, I'm convincing myself that Roman's going to win so that it adds a little bit of mystery to the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they put the tag match as the main event in night one, I go, okay, I am now 100% convinced that Roman is going to win, okay? Because they weren't going to have the two main events be title changes. They just weren't going to do it. And I knew Sami and Kevin were going to win, and I was then at that point convinced. Now, there was one bit during Cody's entrance where they got me. I was tweeting, I was making my remarks, and I had a tweet ready to go in regards to Cody's thing. And he gives the belt to the weight belt to little Brody at ringside.
Yeah, big surprise. I popped for that.
I knew they were there. I knew Amanda and the boys were there. They were putting a lot of stuff out on social media. And they had Cody hands little Brody the belt. And they mention on commentary that's, John Huber, Brody Lee, Luke Harper's son, and everything else like that. And I'm like, son of a bitch, I can't believe they're going to have Cody lose after they did that,
Yeah.
And that's why, I kind of I went quiet afterwards because I'm like, shit. But as a side note to the rest of this, and we'll get into the Cody stuff and we'll get into the Monday Night Raw stuff as well. Fuck Sal of Dragon Gate Evolve fame, fuck Kevin Gill, and fuck Rebby Hardy. You're all scum, and you should all die. Anyway.
Are you going to elaborate on that? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I'll elaborate on that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sal went on Facebook and said, and I don't know how to pronounce Sal's last name, Haumari, whatever the fuck it is, right? So Sal goes on Facebook while WrestleMania is going on. And listen, Sal's a canceled motherfucker. There's so many women that called him out during speaking out. The fact that he even has a sniff in the world of professional wrestling, right? To this day. And it's a small sniff at that, okay? Mm-hmm. And this is going to be a side note for a little bit later on the show in Weekly Purchases, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So Sal puts, seriously, how much disrespect can Tony Khan take? This guy pours hundreds of millions into a company that provides excellent jobs for hundreds of people, only to have them show up backstage and front row of his competition. I'd fire every single one of them.
Fuck that guy.
So Kevin Gill says, he replies to that, saying, I was shocked to see it myself. I can't believe they'd do that to Tony. Rebby Hardy says, hot take, but I agree with you. Now, it's none of my business to say out here what Amanda had to say about that sort of shit, but the fact that she had to read that sort of shit on Facebook from a piece of shit like Sal, and whether you know it, there's been stuff out there publicly, but there's also stuff out there privately of what Cody did for Amanda and those boys while John, her husband, their father, was dying. The day that John passed away, and again, my apologies here, the day that John passed away and Amanda had to go to the hospital to be with him, to agree to pull the plug on him, Cody dropped everything to go be with those two boys to make sure that they were safe and they had a comforting thing. Okay?
Yeah.
So fuck you out there for saying that shit. Okay? And I understand you want to, there's people out there that want to be cool and an edgelord and say crazy shit. And I say dumb shit out there as well. I think sometimes the shit that I say is so outrageous or so innocuous that no one would take it seriously. But it's stuff like this that makes me think that people do take the shit that I say seriously. Sal Hawamari is like a 60-year-old man putting shit up on his Facebook saying that Amanda should lose her job because of the relationship that Cody has with her son. And then people that are in the business as well are like, yeah, Sal, way to go. I'd make sure that those people were blackballed from the business and never had a job ever again. But that's just me. I'm a piece of shit.
Jesus fucking Christ. Fuck these people. Rebby Hardy, like, fucking, who the hell is, she's been a piece of shit tweeter for years now. Like, I never heard of these other two people, but they sound like garbage as well.
Oh, no, you know OG Kevin Gill, former commentator of GCW, current MC or whatever it is for two people at a Circle 6 show WrestleMania weekend.
I'm happy to say that I know it by name only.
All right.
God.
So anyway, fuck all those people. Cody loses, right?
Yeah.
You then wanted to talk about what happens to Cody on Raw.
Yeah. Before I got derailed. I was gonna say something else, but I was gonna say, like, another thing that made me really happy when Roman won, and it's not because, like, I don't hate Cody as much as some of the people on the network, and
you don't love them as much as some of the other people on the network
also,
do either.
That was my follow-up as well. I'm very neutral on Cody, but I'm a Roman guy. I've said for a year now that the Bloodline is the only non-Alexa thing on the show that I care about. So the fact that Roman won, and I'm a heel guy, like, I like the heel champions, I was down for all of that. But the thing that made it all the more satisfying for me, Joe, is just the people losing their mind on Twitter. And I'm not talking about the WWE pilled, like, stan accounts that's like their account is like Becky Lynch WWE 72461. I'm talking about, like, people that are, like, established names on Twitter that have ginormous followings that tweeted, like, chains of, like, 30 tweets about here's all the reasons why this is going to kill the business and this is going to lead to a dark times. This is the new gen era of WWE happening all over again. And I just sat there and I was just like, you're going this crazy over your guy, the guy that you thought was going to win, losing. Like, they're pointing out, like, all these children that are huge Cody fans that now are going to stop watching WWE because Roman won. It's more of the same. And I'm just like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, what an odd take. The first thing that WWE has done to A, get people talking, to B, make people like me that are very much so a lapsed fan actually be interested in what's happening, and you're going to decry it like it's the downfall of WWE. Like, it was just, I was mad, but I found it hilarious at the same time. So
I get Cody, but I could never be a Cody fan. Cody's a fun punching bag, right?
Yeah.
He's a very memeable, gifable wrestler in, like, a fun way because he puts his foot in his mouth and he's a big giant liar and he has a stupid neck tattoo and all these other things, right?
Yeah.
But I said here when I was convincing myself that Roman was going to win that if Cody didn't get hurt over the summer, we absolutely would have saw Cody win here. It's a time issue. They had it in their mind that Cody needed to compete for X amount of time to get that belt. I would put money today that Cody's winning that belt at SummerSlam. Like, that's as sure as a thing that you can get. Barring Cody getting hit by his own fucking bus, right? Or Roman getting injured. Okay, barring injuries to either of the parties, Cody versus Roman 2 is happening at SummerSlam, whether it be from a storyline point where Cody, you know, he climbed the mountain, he had some stumbles, but he made it finally. Or the actual reasons was, you could say that we knew a year ago that that this year's WrestleMania's main event was going to be Cody versus Roman. The night after Raw, Cody came out and more or less called the shot that the match was going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we knew, there was no mystery, there was no build, there was no anything. We knew the match was a foregone conclusion. We knew however we were getting there, it was going to happen. So now there's a little bit of mystery. Paul Heyman's told us the match isn't going to happen. Now Cody has to work a little bit extra harder to get that match, however he's going to get there, and we'll get there how he's going to get there. I don't think this hurts Cody in any way, shape, or form. Cody is a perfectly acceptable cornball wrestler in the World Wrestling Entertainment, and he's a Vince guy. Like, Vince and Bruce are the ones that handpicked Cody for this spot over a year ago. And now that Vince is back in charge, it's going to happen unless Vince has one of his unpredictable mood swings, which never happens with Vince. But the other reason is now that you could do you saw how good the first match drew for WrestleMania. Why not do a similar draw with a similar gate and a similar merch number and a similar buy rate or view rate or however they metric these things now that WWE's on Peacock? Why not do a second one in the rematch in the same year, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why not get two big houses instead of just one big house, right? And that's the other thing. So let's say Cody won the belt last night or WrestleMania. Then what?
Yeah, because, I mean...
What was the plan?
Yeah, he doesn't have... If you take out rematches with Roman, there is no, like, next guy. You know, there's nobody else built up. But I get what you're saying. And I do have just kind of an off-topic question, because I'm going to say I don't see Roman, Cody 2 happening at SummerSlam. And if it does happen, I don't see that being when Cody wins it. I can see them just pushing this off until WrestleMania 40.
Okay.
You know, and just having the excuse be that, well, there is no rematch. They've already said that. So the only way to get that rematch is to win the Rumble. You know, I guess you could win the Money in the Bank too, but, you know, the storyline makes more sense that you got to win the Rumble again. But I don't see why burn it off on SummerSlam when you could just wait until WrestleMania. And then that passes a bunch of the milestones that they're hard on right now in the WWE.
They could pass whatever milestone you have in your mind. They could pass before SummerSlam. You want them to get to 1,000 days, that's July. You want to have him get to exactly 3 years as champion, that's SummerSlam.
No, I get you, but I'm just saying there's more money to be made in having it be the main event of WrestleMania.
But I say, why not do a WrestleMania buy rate, gate, house number at a SummerSlam, and then you have 2 WrestleManias?
Well, that's what I was going to. Year. Well, this is my thing that I thought about when I was watching wrestling this weekend. How long do you think it's going to take, and do you think it's a good idea for them to do SummerSlam Saturday and SummerSlam Sunday? And then slowly, eventually be like Royal Rumble Saturday, Royal Rumble Sunday with a Rumble on each night. And just take the big 4 pay-per-views. Because if you can have a stadium show and sell twice the tickets...
I think SummerSlam is going to be the test. They're not going to do Survivor Series, because Survivor Series is a dead show. But I could see them doing the 3, because sadly it's only the big 3 now. Mania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble. If SummerSlam does a WrestleMania buy rate number, you will see 2024 Royal Rumble be a 2-night show.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's just something I thought about. It's like, why limit yourself to WrestleMania if you're making all this fucking money, you know?
Let's test it. Let's see if the rematch at SummerSlam draws a WrestleMania number.
Well, have the rematch, but have Roman win. And then Cody doesn't win until WrestleMania.
No. Because, like we used to do back in the day, me and Bruce and Pat and Vince got around the pool this past Wednesday. And by them, I mean me and Dave at the comic book shop. And we booked out to SummerSlam. Because here's the biggest problem with all of this. And the problem isn't Cody, okay? The problem isn't WWF, problem isn't Vince, problem isn't Triple H. And you're going to be shocked when I say this. And you are part of the problem. The problem is Roman is too cool. Okay?
All right.
Roman's a heel, but he's a cool heel. And it's not like Roman's going out there to be a cool heel. It's just Roman is naturally a cool dude, right?
He exudes like something, confidence, it factor.
Right. And, you know, that's something that when The Rock first started and they saddled him with the blue chipper and they saddled him with this, and then it took them like almost a year and a half, 2 years to let him be himself, and then he gets over as one of the biggest stars not only in wrestling but also in the world. How long did they hamper and saddle and bridle Roman with every stupid bullshit thing in the world until they finally just said, fuck it, let him be himself. And now he's the head of the table and everything else, you know, the longest reigning champion, et cetera, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't just say to Roman, like, hey, we need Cody to be more over. You need to be less cool. It doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
So how do you make Roman not less cool, but more hateable? Because when they did the WrestleMania entrances and they're doing the introductions, like, Cody got a lot of cheers, right? I would say Cody got like 90-95% cheers. But Roman got like 75% cheers, right?
Mm.
That should have been a 100-0 split. It should have been that entire crowd behind Cody, give or take 5%, and that entire crowd against Roman, give or take 5%, right? So WWE's plan is not to rebuild Cody back up, but to figure out the way to make Roman hateable so that when you get to SummerSlam, Cody has that 100% crowd support and Roman has the crowd much more against him than for him.
So first question is, how is this my fault? Because I'm pro Roman?
Because you said before you like Roman because he's a cool heel.
Oh, no, I get you, but that's not my fault. That's Roman's fault.
Okay, but you're part of the problem. How is Roman... Adam, as a Roman fan,
yes.
What could Roman do to make you boo him?
Wrestle somebody better than Cody Rhodes. That's the thing is I'll never... I don't want to say never, but in their current incarnations, I don't care if Roman like tied Alexa Bliss to a train tracks. I'm still going to cheer for him over Cody. Mm-hmm. You know, and again, I have nothing against Cody, but like, what are the stereotypical things you do as a heel to get heat? Like, is he going to attack Brandy Rhodes? Well, that's the ultimate babyface move.
Okay, for you.
Yeah, no, I get you, but you were asking what it would take to get me to boo Roman Reigns, and was they going to bring in the Deathmatch King and have him get squashed by Roman? Okay, maybe. You know, like I legitimately, given those two options, I don't know what would make me suddenly support Cody.
But I don't want you to support Cody. I want you to boo Roman.
But just like boom in general?
I don't want you to boo him because you're part of the show booing him.
No. I mean, like, just his something about... You want me to find something about Roman that his just him coming out and hearing his music would make me be like, boo, thumbs down, like, legitimately feel it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
but you're that 5%. I'm that 5%. The listeners of this show, for the most part, are that 5%, right?
Yeah.
It's not you that we need to get. It's the other fans, like the much larger audience, the fans that attend the shows, that buy the merch, that, you know, all that sort of thing. We need to convince them. And by we, I mean me and Pat and Bruce and Vince and Dave sitting around the pool booking the territory. And you know what the boar can come to? He's got a lot of good ideas. But I feel as though we got there, we painted a picture, Dave and I, at the comic book shop. I'm not going to share it here on the show because this show isn't going to be like the fantasy booking show. But if you want to know how we get there, whether it works or not is another story. But I definitely think it could be done.
Well, can I say that, like, if you take out saying, okay, what would it take to get Adam to boo Roman? We already established I don't think that's going to happen. But if you want to have the standard WWE fans, the ones who pay actual money to go to Monday Night Raw, like, pay money to go to Raw. Like, if you want them to boo Roman, number one, I think you can't have the Usos with them because the Usos are cool.
Right.
You know, and just the association there. It's like, hey, you got these two cool young dudes, have flashy moves, you know, wear 6 shoes, get them away from Roman. He lost the Usos. I would probably take Paul Heyman away from him because Paul Heyman, love him or not, like, him talking like the ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman, that is over. The crowd likes chanting along with it. They like the wise man. Get him away where it's just Roman. Roman can't say, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, acknowledge me. That gets a pop, even though it's like meant to be a dick thing to say. Like you're saying, like, bow down to me. You're still getting the cheap pop from the crowd. Get rid of that stuff. And make him less jokey where he's like casually talking to the person he's going to fight. Just have him go more stoic and silent. I think those basic things might cause the paying audience to think he's less of a cool heel.
I like these ideas. When I go back up, talk with the booking
Get
committee.
Back to the pool. All right.
Yeah.
Pass it along.
These are good. I'm going to pass this along, right?
Perfect.
But again, like I said, the problem's not Cody. Cody's a perfect WWE athlete, sports entertainer, right? When Cody wins the belt at SummerSlam, and then our winter program is him versus The Miz, everyone will be happy, right?
Yeah.
And they could do the doink. They could do the doink mirror spot with each other, right?
Yeah. So, you want to get on to the Raw after WrestleMania?
No, because there is one more thing that I have to mention. We talked about WrestleMania so much, and Adam, you are probably forgetting maybe the greatest moment in WrestleMania history.
Okay. I think I know what you're putting down.
Hey, need more than that.
Come on, Miz.
Oh, Shane still got it.
Well,
I was expecting you to drop.
Shane might have come down wrong on his knee. That's the risk you take. This is all Snoop Dogg's fault. Look at Miz. What a great host. Miz at WrestleMania. He's victorious without even breaking a sweat.
Now Shane came down wrong on his knee off the leapfrog.
This is WrestleMania. These are
Snoop just punched Miz in the mouth, and Snoop Dogg taking out Miz.
You all right, cuz? Oh, no. Hold on. Miz was about I can't believe that, cuz. We were about to declare Miz victorious. You knocked my homeboy out like that? Like that? That's what you gonna do?
Oh, second.
My God! Miz is out cold.
It was the referee saying just pin him.
1,000 people.
Snoop's got a right hand.
Who knew? I still think we have a match. I mean, Snoop Dogg declared that a match was going to take place.
Well, Snoop Dogg's going to make sure the match continues.
This isn't okay.
No elbow pad.
Do whatever he wants.
What's he got?
I guess we are in Inglewood. I think those glasses cost
those
more than
crotch chops. Look at him hitting the ropes, just attacking him.
Somebody said that he
pin me. He says
he runs the ropes like Kelly.
I think it's great. Standing ovation for Snoop Dogg.
Your winner.
All right, I just want to say before you do your thing, I saw the discourse around this. I'm gonna lay out on this and just let you talk about it because I know that this has popped the internet huge. Me not as much. Like kudos to him for thinking on his feet, but this isn't like my number one WrestleMania moment like it is for the Boar.
Oh my God! Listening to Final Wrestling Place and them reacting to this. And the fact that they told the story that the Boar was crying for another half hour after this happened. I'm watching it and I thought it was his ankle at first, the way that he came down. And they later come out and they say that he tore his quad just like his old man or whatever it is. But that's one of those things. It's still in the Peacock version as of Tuesday, right? I'm not going to pull up Peacock right now because I'm a poor and I have the ads version, whatever, right?
Yeah, please don't pull up your cock.
Oh my goodness! But I could see them, eventually. They made no mention of it afterwards. Who knows what the storyline of the angle with Shane O'Mac was supposed to be after this? Was this supposed to be just to be a one-off? We saw lightning in a bottle, a WrestleMania, an actual unplanned WrestleMania moment happened, and the fact that Snoop Dogg calls the audible to just punch the Miz in the face, the referee is like saying like and like pin him, and the Snoop's like, "Nah, dog, it's WrestleMania. I'm gonna do the fucking shittiest people's elbow in the history of the world." And then as he comes down for the people's elbow, the Miz just right on camera is just saying like, "Pin me, pin me, pin me, pin me." Just unbelievable. Anything can happen to the World Wrestling Entertainment.
Joe, I just want to say, forget Bad Bunny, forget Logan Paul, Pat McAfee. They can all go to hell. If you want to do a gate at SummerSlam, The Miz versus Snoop Dogg.
That's your undercard. That's your night 2. That's your night 1 main event. Your night 2 main event is Cody Roman 2.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sell out that stadium.
All right. So you had more stuff to talk about for the Raw after WrestleMania.
I'm not going to go a deep dive into it. I'm just going to say myself, as well as I saw DJ tweet pretty much the same thing. I go listen to We Need Wrestling. Me and him had very similar feelings coming out of WrestleMania and going into the Raw after WrestleMania. And I watched, I'd say 80% of that real time, which I never watch Raw like live, but I was watching it, skipping over very little, waiting for that electric post-WrestleMania Raw moment. And show starts off, we have Triple H coming out to address, we're not going anywhere, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that's a not a great promo, but that's a promo that I wasn't expecting. This is the Raw after WrestleMania. And a bunch of stuff happens that could have happened on a random SmackDown in the middle of the year. And the one big, oh my God moment that shook the wrestling world to its core was, hey, Matt Riddle came back. Yay. A lot of people over the age of 8 were excited about that.
Oh my goodness. So, the only thing that I watched live from Raw on Monday was the, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn promo, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't feel the same as their build. It didn't feel the same as the match. It didn't feel the same as their, discussion at the presser after the match. And like I said, it was taken care of over on Final Wrestling Place as the information came out and other podcasts on the network, or on Viewer's Choice, got to mention this with the sale of WWE to
Endeavor.
What's that? Endeavor. I almost said Anthem, which would be even more hilarious. And then Vince gives the thing where they ask him if he's going to be involved in creative anymore, and he just says yes and no. And I'm like, well, that's a yes, is what that is. But in all of this, all of the problems that everyone has with Vince's creative and, this person not getting the shot and Cody being made to look like a fool, you know who the biggest victim in all of this is, Adam?
Bobby Lashley?
LA Knight is the biggest victim. He loses the Andre Battle Royal, which he should have won. You heard that crowd react to him when he got thrown out. They were pissed. Then, no LA Knight moment for WrestleMania. And leading up to Vince's ousting over the summer, if you remember, LA Knight, when he was Max Dupree, got sent home because him and Vince didn't see eye to eye on what the character was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So now that Vince is back in creative, yes or no, LA Knight's fucked.
Yeah. And just to finish my thought about Monday Night Raw, it could have been any generic Raw or SmackDown over the past 6 months. Nobody was presented differently. I will argue that I don't care about Cody versus Lesnar. I saw that coming a mile away, but that's not like the hot new direction the company's going in, that you should be excited about. There was nothing in a 3-hour broadcast. There was nothing that hooked me to want to tune into SmackDown, to tune into the next Raw. And you have all these eyes on you and all this goodwill that you just built up from a great WrestleMania to just go and give them nothing on Monday Night Raw. I'm back out. And you had your opportunity to get me. And LA Knight aside, that giant fumbled ball right there. There's a lot of eyes tuned into Raw, just willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, saying, okay, you have my attention. What can you do? And they did nothing. And it was a giant joke that the Dynamite after Raw was more impactful than the Dynamite after WrestleMania was more impactful than the Raw after WrestleMania.
So I'm with you. I won't be watching SmackDown live. I'll definitely be keeping an eye toward it to see how different Triple H's promo to start SmackDown this week is going to be from the one that he gives on Raw. I'll be looking to see if LA Knight's on there. But, if you enjoyed the Triple H regime since this past August, I feel as though you're going to be in for a world of hurt coming up here,
Yeah. How many of the, I just want to say, how many of the Infinity Gauntlet acquisitions of Papa H are going to be gone in the next month or two?
Killer Cross is gone, which means
Scarlet?
Scarlet. Fiend is gone for sure, and anyone that was picked up under the Fiend, like secretly Bo Dallas coming back and whomever else. All of Hit Row is gone.
Good riddance.
If he knows what's good for him, John Gargano will just stay down in NXT and never come back up to the main roster and hope Vince forgets about him.
Yeah.
To paraphrase somebody else, in the 6 months or however long it's been that Vince has been gone, 8 months, I would like Vince to go to NXT and line up the entire roster, and if he could guess their first names. Like, don't even, you know what I mean? Like, don't even tell me, yeah.
Right.
But, yeah.
It's such a shame because, all those memes that said, like, Triple H, Booker of the Year, they're not going to come true anymore.
No, they're not. So, we're sitting here, we're talking. You had mentioned about all these grown-ass men writing 30-page screeds on their Twitters in regards to how dare they do this to poor Cody and the reaction that these folks had in this regard. Adam, I'm going to take you back to Friday, okay?
All right.
We're going to talk about the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. And after we recorded our show last week, they put like a road to the pay-per-view up. And they did this whole thing with Mark Briscoe talking about Jay and showing him with the family and the whole build up to him with the match with Samoa Joe for the TV title. And then Mark Briscoe loses.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they do everything for weeks on Ring of Honor TV, building up the rivalry with Claudio and Eddie Kingston, showing how far back their rivalry goes, back to some rinky-dink promotion that ran in half of a basketball court in Easton, Pennsylvania. 10-plus years in the history that these men have, and men that held the title in a Ring of Honor before, like Low Key and Homicide and Xavier, and these were men that were mentors to Eddie Kingston coming up in the world of professional wrestling. And then the Ring of Honor pay-per-view goes off the air, and Eddie Kingston loses in the main event for the world title. And I don't want to say that I was like those Cody fans, but I will say this. The Mark thing, so anytime something like this happens in a non-WWF promotion, even in a WWF promotion, let's assume that there's something else going on that we don't know about, okay? Let's assume, and again, I don't know, I haven't seen any of the Ring of Honor taping stuff. Mark just lost his brother not 2 months ago, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say he was okay with the build up toward the pay-per-view, but now that the pay-per-view's over, he's going to take some time and spend it with his family. So they can't put the belt on him, right?
Mm-hmm.
They could always come back to it. The Eddie stuff. And I'm going to give credit to my friend that I've known for a very long time, professional wrestler Grant Akuma. He said that the thing that makes Eddie so over is his climb. People cheer Eddie because they want to see him fight for the title. They don't want to see him be the champion, whether they realize it or not. And I give the example, and Eddie... And listen, no bigger Eddie Kingston supporter than me. I thought the match was fantastic. It was probably my favorite match of the entire weekend, because it was just so different than anything else that I saw. Different than anything that was on the pay-per-view, different than anything that I saw for the rest of the weekend, right? So Eddie, in his promos and everything else building up, mentions Homicide. Homicide, his run in Ring of Honor from 2003 until 2006 was him going for the world title. And it did not matter who the champion was. If it was Samoa Joe, he lost. And he got shot after shot against Samoa Joe, and he lost. He gets shots against Austin Aries and loses. He gets shots against Jamie Noble and loses. He gets shots against Punk and loses. He gets shots against Danielson and loses. Until finally, after the CZW feud is over, at Final Battle 2006, Homicide finally wins the Ring of Honor title after a 3-year fight to get that belt. And on the very next show with him as champion, the crowd shit all over him. Because there's certain characters in wrestling that, and this is a Bruceism, that there's certain characters for whatever reason that don't need the title. Jake Roberts never needed to be the world champion. Roddy Piper never needed to be the world champion. These are guys that we love. And we want the guys that we love to be the world champion. Sometimes not realizing that the reason that we love them is because of their fight to the world title, not them being the world champion.
The fact that they sometimes they want to be champ but never will be is also, an appealing thing.
Yes.
Because you see, none of us, you and I, aren't going to be world champion, and you see something in Eddie Kingston, Not to say that he won't be champ, but...
Right, because Eddie on the climb to the mountain is different than Eddie as the king of the mountain. And as you know, there's only one king of the mountain.
No.
So, yeah, man, like I said, as a fan, suspending all disbelief, I so bad wanted Eddie to win that belt, and I was pissed off when it happened. But I was like, it was a really good match. Yeah. And we don't know if the story's over or it's continuing. And they pretty much said on commentary, this is far from over. Eddie cuts the promo afterwards saying, like, this is far from over. And I, have no choice but to believe them and say, this is far, this is far from over, right?
Yeah. And plus, it's not like he lost to Chris Jericho.
And it's not like Claudio squashed him or something.
Yeah, no, but at the end of the day, it's like, oh shucks, Claudio's the Ring of Honor world champion. It's
right.
Still a guy that I want to stay behind. And maybe Eddie Kingston will finish his story at the at Wembley. You never know.
Right, you never know. And my whole thing is, whenever the next Arthur Ashe show is, which unfortunately isn't going to be until like end of the summer, early September, you have Eddie win a belt there. But so much can change between now and then.
Yeah. All right. It's funny how I do remember seeing obviously a lot of frustrated people on Twitter this past Friday night and Saturday morning around that Ring of Honor show. But it seems like A, ancient history, and B, it was completely drowned out by the Cody Roman stuff.
Yeah.
But all right, I mean, that's it for me. I'm not going to deep dive into WWE being purchased by the UFC. Whatever. Yeah, different streaming service I have to buy. All right.
Yeah, we'll see. Or
I'll get off.
Or a streaming service that I could cancel.
Exactly. I can finally cut the cock and get something else. I don't know. But I think that's it.
Yeah, that's really all I got to. We hit pretty much anything and everything that we wanted to hit there. Of course, the homework will be over on the Patreon for next week, since there was, Adam's assigning me, he mentioned it already, that we'll be watching the Marine 4. And what's the subtitle of it?
It's something snipery.
Moving Target.
There we go. Yeah, it was starring Summer Rae as a sniper, I've been told.
And it's only 90 minutes, so that's acceptable, right?
Yeah.
So that'll what we'll be discussing next week on the Patreon. Adam mentioned, of course, patreon.com/AtOddsWrestling. You can go to atoddswrestling.com for all the information about all the shows and everything else, including our eBay affiliate links. When you click on links to various merchants on this site to make a purchase, this can result in the site earning a commission. Affiliate programs and affiliations include, but are not limited to, the eBay Partner Network.
Yeah.
T-Public sale is going on. It looks like they had initially said it was only going on for Wednesday and Thursday, but now it looks like it's rolling over into Friday. I don't know. T-Public seems like a fly-by-night operation. But we did have a purchase just today. Somebody purchased a Fig Daddy Cool shirt.
Oh, well, I mean, thanks for making the purchase. Probably the worst shirt you can buy on the site, but other than that...
I'm sure I could find one worse.
Yeah. Don't be mean to the Uncle Taker shirt.
I don't mean on our side. I mean of all of T-Public.
Oh, okay. I thought you just meant out of like the
no.
All right, fair enough.
I mean the entire website T-Public. I'm sure I can find a shirt worse than the Big Daddy Cool shirt.
I'm sure since this is all like uploadable content, there's some vile shit available.
So, hey, Jerry's Internet Wrestling Emporium, a.k.a. IndependentWrestling.tv. If and when we ever get back to watching Chikara stuff, and hey, if you didn't watch it a couple months ago when we assigned it, Ashes is on Jerry's Internet Wrestling Emporium. So get watching that, priming up for the Patreon show that's dropping on Monday. Use our promo code @odds. Lets Jerry know you came to him from us. And if you continue your subscription with them, we'll get a little bit of a kickback. But also, Adam, as we record this, we are 15 days away from the next LVAC show.
Yep, and it is NWO sold out.
Right, even though my spell check always wants to spell correct NWO to now, which is how it's listed here. Listen, I just say, hey, show sold out in 4 days from the tickets going on sale. You know what I mean? That's awesome. And the only thing at that time that was announced was 2 matches and a bunch of talent. And a lot of it is the same talent that's been a lot of the other LVAC shows. It just goes to show what it is to build. Because they've been doing LVAC shows now for, 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
So they built like their little niche, their fandom that like to come to the LVAC shows, and you'll see when you go to those shows or when they go up on Jerry's Internet Wrestling Emporium or you buy the DVDs and you watch the shows at home, you will see there's an independent fan there, but you'll also see that there's not wrestling fans there. There are fans at LVAC shows that are fans of LVAC.
Yeah, it's a very weird crowd. Like you said, I don't think half of those people will ever go to another show. Like, you're not going to see them at some other indie. They're just fans of the vibe, fan of the inclusiveness, the music. There's something about the combination that draws like half that crowd,
Right. But right now we have Big Dan in a handicap match against Bojack and Jakob Hammermeyer.
Bojack and Jakob, yeah.
The debuting team of Starlight 17 taking on what I'm dubbing the LVAC mega powers of Cheeseburger and Edith Surreal.
Oh, yeah.
And we also have Clara Sierras taking on the debuting KZT, who I will admit I am very unfamiliar with. She is debuting, but I got 2 weeks to do my homework on her. And again, a lot of other familiar names and faces have been announced for the LVAC show. I don't know who the band is. Somebody tried to tell me who it was, and I'm just like, I don't know nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to hit the plugs for the podcast, and then we're going to hit the phone calls.
All right. Yeah, I'm all a little out of order here, but those podcasts you should listen to are Longbox Heroes, Longbox Heroes After Dark, Final Wrestling Place, We Need Wrestling, Porch Talk, Viewer's Choice, Wrestling Cheers, Indie Wrestling Guide, Wings on Wings, and maybe coming soon, Hayabusa, a wrestling adjacent podcast.
All right. Voicemails, huh?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First call is from our good friend Pat.
Okay, hello boys. It is Ronald Two Legs. It is Friday at 11:30. The show just dropped last night, but I'm now just listening to it this morning. Had a real rough morning, and now all of a sudden I'm starting off early. I am fucking 50 seconds into this show, and I'm already on the heater, all heater, no heater, whatever the fucking button is. I can't take this shit anymore. Adam, what is your deal with Cleveland baseball fans? Why do you constantly poke the bear? Because you have this idea, because one fan you talk to doesn't pay attention half the season, that all of us just don't give a shit. Well, I don't give a shit anymore because it's fucking baseball. It's like 180 games. But when I went to every single opening day game for a fucking decade straight. How many games a year do you go to Yankee Stadium there, Adam? I'm just curious how many games you're checking in at the old Bronx or wherever the fuck that thing is now. They've moved it now how many times. But how many games a year would you say you go to? I'm just curious. This is probably going to be phone call one of many because I'm just in an absolute ripe mood of all moods this morning after all kinds of shit that happened to me. So I'm sure I'll be calling again later once I hear some more slander on this show. That's all it's become anymore. I got this feud going with that. I don't even know what he's going to say. God only knows. All right. Love you, Joe. I love you too, Adam. You just pissed me off. Bye.
All right, lots to unpack before I forget. Number one, you literally just said you go to the opening day game and then stop paying attention because the season's too long. So apology accepted. Number two, I wouldn't call it poking a bear. It's more like poking like a poodle when you poke Cleveland fans. Number three, I live 3 hours away from Yankee Stadium, and because they have fans that go to all their games, the tickets are very expensive. It's not like I can go to a Guardians game where they give you like 2 for $10 and throw in a hot dog and free parking. So there's actually demand for Yankee games. But I will say there's I believe a 3-game, possibly 4-game set, Guardians versus Yankees, occurring in Cleveland this week. I believe before we record again, the Yanks and Guardians will have played their first series. So we'll see what happens there, Mr. Two Legs.
Now, I do want to say last week when I goaded you into talking about baseball to start the show, it was because I knew we would get this call. Not specifically from Pat, but from someone.
And it's like, oh, yeah, I get it. Oh, bloops, look at us. We hit singles. Yeah, a lot of good that does you when you play a real team in the playoffs. So keep beating crappy teams by hitting like bunt singles. And then I'm sure all of your hard work will get erased by one Glaber Torres home run. So eat it.
All right. Pat calls in again.
Yep. Hello, it's Big Daddy Ronald here, calling back phone call number 2. Nobody really said anything the rest of the show that pissed me off, so this one will be a little bit nicer, at least in comparison to that first phone call. So I just wanted to say I really agreed with a lot of Joe's takes for WrestleMania this weekend.
Thank you.
I would be pretty happy if a lot of the things he predicted happened. I agreed with a lot of the stuff he said. I don't know if most of it will come true, but I would like it if they did. I don't even really know how much of WrestleMania I'm going to end up watching. I got to check the local blast zone area and see where everyone's getting together, because I sure as shit ain't just going to sit at my house and watch it. I'll fall asleep. But I know Adam had mentioned that Ed was putting up pictures of his favorite San Francisco Giants, to put up his all-time favorite noted race Nazi, whatever the fuck he is, Aubrey Huff. As we all know, Ed, that's his favorite. Aubrey Huff, Ed's favorite San Francisco Giant. So, okay, yeah, I probably shouldn't say too many mean things about him. He's got to catch up with this whole feud. He's like a week behind, so I'm sure whatever he called and said about me this week, I can't respond to it here. So I'll just let it go now, and I'll talk to everyone later. Bye-bye now. Bye for now.
Is Aubrey Huff one of the people in the Giants jerseys that Ed had tweeted at me?
No. So the people that Ed had tweeted at you, there was a lady who I didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
Eric, the actor from the Howard Stern show.
Okay.
Daniel Bryan and Vince
Russo.
Russo.
That. Yeah, I knew the Russo and Bryan. I just didn't know who the girl or the other guy was.
Yeah. Who do you say? Okay. Audrey Huff?
Aubrey. I recognize the name, but I don't know.
I think Aubrey Huff is like a super canceled guy.
It's a guy? Oh, I thought it was a girl.
No, it's a guy.
Right.
I'm looking at his Wikipedia for controversies, All
right.
He's a whatchamacallit? He's a Transformers guy.
All right, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Good for him.
Yeah. Oh, he's a big Trump guy. All right, whatever.
Oh, never mind then. What a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah. All right, so Pat calls back again.
All right.
Hey, look at who it is. Third time, 3 phone calls. What an asshole. Okay, anyways, real quick. Joe said he didn't know who the band was for the April 22nd Let's Hang Out show. And that's one of the main reasons I'm bummed out that I can't come to that show. I'm booked on another show. But the band Radiator Hospital is playing, Joe. Definitely not your type of music,
Nope.
but anyone who's listening should go check them out. They're a great band. So, yeah, that's all. I just had to call back and say the band that's playing is called Radiator Hospital. They rule. All right, I got to go do a Gazintas. See ya.
And I'll just say the reason why Mr. Two Legs cannot come to the LVAC is he is a company guy, and AIW will be having their event Damned on the same day. So go check out AIW that day if you're around there. And also just give him a quick plug. He was on Indie Wrestling Guide this week. Check out Ronald Two Legs.
Yeah, he did an amazing job. Pat's an interesting and entertaining cat, you know?
Absolutely. And, Jay Gold and Jay Hawk and Marcy and Butters, just taking our scraps. Good for you.
Oh, my God. Anyway, next call.
Hey guys, it's the strongest man in all the land, Arthur MacArthur here. I haven't called in a while. I've just been so wrapped up in my personal life, getting things done. I always just forget to make a call, so I'm going to make it up. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to add a couple questions to kind of make up for the lost time. Obviously, baseball season is away. We'll get you this year, Adam. Anyways, first question. Obviously, Mania was, in my opinion, really great. Definitely some... Night 2 definitely wasn't as good as Night 1, but would you guys consider Night 1? Would you consider that its own entity in itself? And would you consider that in, one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time? Because, in my opinion, Night 1 is an all-timer. Literally no match fell short. Every match had it delivered on what it was supposed to, and I thought it was great. Even though Night 2 I thought wasn't as great, I still found, some positives. I'm not going to get into the negatives. We don't need to go into that. I'm sure you'll talk about it. Anyways, second question. Actually, it's going to come from a personal experience because this week I'm going to Las Vegas and I need some help. I plan on doing some roulette numbers and, I just need some guidance from my guys. So you two, give me a number. Any number, and I will place some serious cash on it. Let's split this pot together. All right, that's all I got. Hope you all have a great week.
I'm looking up because I only played roulette once, and I was really, really drunk, and somebody else was spotting me. So they were teaching me how to play. I'm looking up a roulette board to see what number it goes up to. Looks like it goes to 35.
Aw.
So hopefully, I'm going to say 33 is my number.
All right. My number already is 23. And if it lands on 23, you don't have to give me a cut of the fucking money.
Yeah.
But treat yourself to a nice steak and lobster dinner on my half.
All right. And if you hit 33, I do want a cut of the money because I'm unemployed.
But he had a question about Night 1 versus Night 2 of WrestleMania. I say Night 2 was better overall. Obviously, having seen Night 2 live as I was watching it, as opposed to Night 1, which I did not get a chance to see live because I was out. The only thing that I really needed to go back and watch on Night 1 was the tag title match. I didn't care about the Logan Paul, Seth Rollins match, the 6-woman match, whatever. I heard the 4-team tag match was really good on Night 1, but
it was better than it needed. It was better than it needed to be.
Yeah, it really overshot its coverage as it were. But I think Night 2 overall was the better thing. The only real stinker on Night. I know. You know what? I take that back. I did watch, and again I feel bad. I watched the finish, the last stretch, the last half of Charlotte versus Rhea, and I thought the last half that was really good. So there's 2 good matches there on Night 1. Where Night 2 has the Snoop Dogg thing and the Roman match.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't really, like, everything else on top of that is just like bonus points.
Yeah, I think like Artie, when I saw on social media, he really liked night one. He thought it was like pretty much a perfect show. And I don't want to disagree with him at all because that would be like disagree with myself.
Right.
But I thought it was a very even from top to bottom, like solid show. But like there's maybe the Intercontinental title match was the only one that like the only match that got me like on my feet in the entire night.
Okay.
Where it was like, okay, that's a fucking great match. Maybe I'm just jaded because like I'm still, the fan in me is bitter that Sammy and KO were relegated to like, no, poor guys relegated to a main event of WrestleMania. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like Sammy, like he wasn't the guy, to go after Roman. And like, it kind of seems like a consolation prize. So for me, that match loses a little bit of its appeal. But like night one was solid, if not in my eyes, unremarkable. And night two just has more, just the Cody Roman shock alone is going to make that be the one that stands out for me.
Yeah.
And the Snoop Dogg thing, I guess. We'll call it in the ring.
And hey, listen, I thank you for calling in a long time. And listen, I understand Artie, your personal life and everything else. But remember when Artie used to call in a Pod Van Dam? It was like production value and he's doing the voice and all this other stuff. I miss when Artie would make calls like that.
Yeah, I think that was he had a special helper with the production on that stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I think going forward, maybe the next time we hear Artie's voice, it'll be a little more old timey.
All right. Next call.
All right.
Hey, Adam. Hey, Joe. It's Jayhawk. Hard to cram everything into a 3-minute voicemail this week. A lot of stuff went on. 2 nights of WrestleMania, Ring of Honor pay-per-view, AEW coming to Wembley, WWE being sold, Vince apparently back in power. But of course, you can't talk about 2 nights of WrestleMania, 8 hours of WrestleMania, without talking about the biggest travesty of all the travesties. Where the fuck was LA Knight? Yeah, where the fuck was LA Knight? I 8 hours of WrestleMania. LA Knight it's WrestleMania in LA, and you can't get you LA Knight. You mid-cast to wrestle 3 people in the course of 48 hours. You can't find room for LA Knight to be one of them. Bobby Lashley needs an open challenge on the Twitter machine. You can't have LA Knight answer that challenge and beat Bobby Lashley in like 30 seconds. That's such a travesty. Unbelievable. Cannot believe they can't believe they built this for so long. All right, guys. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. What a week. It's going to be a long time for that Fast 50 week. I will talk to you guys later.
I think we touched on this already, is that your boy Vince doesn't like your other boy LA Knight, so that the LA NyQuil has run out and nobody's running to the store to get more.
Sadly, no. Let's just hope he at least stays on the roster until the SmackDown that's supposed to be coming up in our neck of the woods in June.
Yeah.
And I get to experience LA Knight live and in person.
Yeah, and I mean, really, if he just has to hold out Vince, I mean, how long could that guy fucking possibly live?
I don't know. I think he's gonna outlive all of us,
Oh, yeah. God, no. All right, thanks, Jayhawk.
Thank you, Jayhawk. Next call.
Hello, guys. Kevin here. I've been trying to think what tangent, what angle, whatever I'm gonna take with this. All right. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm having a blast. I'm watching a ton of fun wrestling. I'm hanging out with my best friends. I'm just having so much fun. Saturday, night 1 WrestleMania, I'm like, what a great night. Like, I'm excited for Sunday and whatever else I end up watching. And then night 2, I'm like, half and half. I'll say it was a 50-50 show. There's some stuff I'm like, that wasn't that great. And other stuff that, was still really fun. Ending, I had faith. I'm like, that is not the ending I thought was going to happen at all. But maybe as part of a larger story, something else has happened. And then Monday's Raw happened, and that was one of the worst 3 hours that I've ever sat through of wrestling in my life.
Yep.
And I think I've been thinking about it all since Monday. So, make an example here. Like, there's all that stuff, Rhea Ripley being just surrounded at the airport. No celebrity owes you anything. Like, they have the right to live their own life and travel and eat dinner and go to gym and not be accosted constantly. Like, they don't owe you anything. They're doing their job. However, TV show or movie, I feel you owe me being entertained for 2 hours, 3 hours, however long the thing is. I am giving up my time and or money for this thing. Please make it worth it. And half of Sunday and all of Monday was not worth that at all for me. Now, am I going to stop? I don't know. Probably not. Am I going to focus on only wrestling? No. Like, Monday, thank God I was reading and doing other stuff, because it would have been even worse for me. Now we got Triple H saying whatever on SmackDown, which I think will just be exactly what he said on Raw, but for the Fox audience. And I think a lot of us were just so mad because we felt insulted for Monday. Like, I got other shit I could do with my life and with my time and energy. Other stuff that's still better wrestling. And, I'm not saying I'm not going to watch, but going to do other stuff. Like, listen to the Patreon show.
There you go.
I guess.
Yeah.
So I think, you were saying that Raw was bad. And listen, I can't judge because I didn't watch all of Raw, okay?
And I'll clarify real quick. Was it any worse than probably any episode of Raw in the last 6 months, a year? Probably not.
Right.
But, like, I went into it thinking that, hey, they're going to make an effort to keep me, but they didn't. So it wasn't any worse than any other random Raw.
How about we put this caveat on it? This was the worst post-WrestleMania Raw of all time.
I would say it's quite possible.
Right. If you judge it by that metric. But how many episodes of Raw are there? There's over 1,000, right? There's got to be episodes of Raw, like from the early days when they were filming them at Fernwood, and you get a 3 commercial break, like Tatanka versus Crush match or something,
Yeah.
I'm sure that sucks a lot worse than what we got this past week. But, they tried, like, in their mind, we mentioned before, I'm sure in their mind, the Brock turn, the setup of, Bad Bunny getting laid up at Damian Priest, the return of Riddle, like, those 3 things were enough. Right?
Yeah, one semi-interesting thing an hour.
Yeah.
Or how about Seth Rollins getting his music before the commercial, then they come back from commercial, they hit his music, and he leaves the ring because Vince changed the script.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a lot of, and again, I think a lot of people are assuming that they changed the script, but again, it was a weird thing. It was very odd.
Yeah. I obviously, like, there's 39 WrestleManias. What do you figure? Raw started 8 WrestleManias in, 7 WrestleManias in.
90. The first post-Mania Raw would have been from WrestleMania 9, so like 30 years.
Yeah, so you have 30 Raws after WrestleManias. So this is ranked number 30 out of the 30.
You know what? If I went back and I watched them all, those 30 Raws from post-Manias, this might not be the worst one. This would probably be in the bottom 5, but I don't think it would be the worst one.
Coming soon to the At Odds Patreon for only $10 a month. We go back and revisit all the Raws after WrestleMania.
You're right. We're not going to watch WrestleMania. We're just going to watch the Raws after WrestleMania.
Exactly.
All right.
Let us know if that's something you'd be interested in and how much you'd be willing to pay. But thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. Last call.
Hey there, Joe, Adam. It's the other JB here. Well, for starters, I have a little bit of a rant I want to go on.
Uh-oh.
So, this week on Dynamite, Jungle Boy had a little bit of fun. said he was really proud of himself. I know that it's a bit that I am the other JB. I have a certain physical likeness to Jack Perry, but I will not stand for being single white femaled by Jungle Boy this week. Unlike him, I actually was in percussion. I played at Carnegie Hall, not him. That's a terrible symbol use, and it's just got me steamed already. Because I'm so mad at my doppelganger, I want some recommendations on, the man who was ready, willing to, put a stomp into him, Christian Cage. A couple of recommendations, Christian Cage, singles or tag team with Edge, whichever one y'all are thinking about. All right, thank you.
Such a burden that the other JB has to deal with, just being associated, sometimes confused with Jungle Boy.
Yeah, I bear a very close resemblance to one of the hottest looking wrestlers on TV. Woe is me.
I know. We need to start a GoFundMe for the poor guy.
Not a crowdfunding?
No, it's a Kickstarter. We'll start, but obviously I'll say just the genericest of generic answers, the TLC stuff with the Hardys and the Dudleys.
Okay. And I'll also throw in there, what a layered guy other JB is just like casually thrown in there. Like, yeah, I played at Carnegie Hall as well, right?
Yeah, I'm a classically trained
percussionist. Sure. Yeah. He sounds like quite a catch, this other JB.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anna Jay's going to switch sides, upgrade.
Did you see that Anna Jay promo from Rampage, the Rampage that nobody watched this past week?
She's like, I got a fat ass and a big attitude.
As soon as I saw that, I sent that to Jonah. And I'm like, hey, wrestling's back, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. Christian singles matches. As we're talking about this, I'm sure the boar is yelling and sending me recommendations, right?
100%, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go singles matches, and Edge retires, and then they do the bit with Christian wins the belt from Del Rio, then Orton wins the belt from Christian, and then Christian and Orton do a program, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any of the matches in that Christian Orton program from 2011 are awesome matches. And listen, everyone gives what's his face? Christian a bad rap. Or not Christian, Randy Orton a bad rap, says he's boring or whatever it is.
Which he is.
He's not. I think he's pretty good, right? And I think those matches with Christian were great. And a lot of it was because what we saw from, like, Christian and Orton were great partners together in the ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say a lot of Christian's TNA stuff is spotty at best for me. If I'm trying to think here, the matches that he had with Kenny in AEW recently were really good, right?
The over the Impact title, right?
Right. I'm sure he had good matches in TNA, but I just can't think of any right now. But that's what I recommend. The program with Orton from 2011 and the program with Kenny from last year.
I think I remember him having a good run with Perk Angle in TNA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, everyone did, because Kurt was a maniac.
Yeah. All right.
Now,
cool.
That was our last call, and I want to just, before anyone asks, no calls from Ed this week. Ed is in deep preparation for the upcoming debut of Hiya Bussy, and I have it on good authority that he's been sitting alone in a dark room staring at a candle in silence.
Good to know, but yeah, Ed, you're missed, and we love you, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon.
Yes. But because we did things out of order, The other weekly purchases. I ended up doing the weekly purchases before, right?
Yeah.
So I saw someone post on Twitter. You know how you get Facebook recommendations from people? And sometimes you wonder how that happens. Like, add this person as a friend, right? It's just the way the Facebook algorithm works.
Yeah, it's like, you have one mutual, and they're going to recommend somebody.
Yeah. Well, this person had 14 mutuals with Drake Wirtz.
Okay.
So I poked at him and I said, I would question those mutuals. And he goes, I bet you have more mutuals with Drake Wirtz than I do. And I went and I checked. Did I have more or less than 14?
Hopefully it's less, but I won't be surprised if unknowingly it was more.
It was more.
Oh, Jesus.
It was 18. Now, I will say this. There were some people, because I don't use Facebook very often, but it is some people that it was like when I was at different parts in my wrestling career.
Sure.
And I'm like, ooh, that person, I don't know why they even still have a Facebook. They're like ultra mega canceled, so I can unfriend them, right?
Yeah.
And then there are other people that may be in one, if not both, of the major companies right now that are still friends with them. Maybe because they don't check their Facebook, and I'm not going to put them on blast, right?
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that if I just said, like, hey, so-and-so, just remember you have him as a friend, they're like, oh, yeah, let me fix that. But suffice to say, I am down to 14 now.
Yeah, I think that, like, when you have Facebook, and a lot of the people listening to this podcast might be like, why would you still have Facebook? What is it? So on. But, like, I don't know, like, half of the people that I'm friends with, I'm sure if I looked at my friend list, I would see names that I haven't seen in my feed in years.
Right.
So it's like you kind of forget, like, I friended that person 12 years ago, 14 years ago. And also, like, in the wrestling business, especially, like, before we all smartened up, like, I think a lot of people were friends with people out of, like, a business relationship. You're networking, you worked with this guy or you want to work with this gal or whatever. So it's not an endorsement that you were friends with them, so whatever. I don't blame you.
Yeah. All right. But that was and then the other stuff that I mentioned before.
All right. Let's get to the best part of the show. Some might cost a little. Some might cost a lot. But I'm the $100 Vansky. And your figures will be bought. All right, Joe. Lots of purchases for you this week?
No, I have none. Zero, zilch, nada. But I do just want to throw this out here. Breaking news!
Shit.
I don't know if you saw, World Wrestling Entertainment, along with the company TCG Toys, have announced for the third quarter of 2023 the return of Bendies.
Oh, shit. Well, luckily, I'm not a Bendy's guy.
Luckily, you're not a Bendy's guy. They're doing 4 individuals, and then they're doing a 4-pack. The 4 individuals are Hogan, Rock, Austin, and Undertaker, and the 4-pack is Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Rey Mysterio, and John Cena.
I can tell you, and you can cut this audio out, not as in like remove it from the podcast, but save it for posterity. I have zero desire to buy an actual, like, real WWE Bendy. It doesn't matter who it is. I will never buy one. Like, because I think this came up with somebody, like, not on the podcast or whatever, because I never owned a Bendy. I wasn't collecting wrestling figures then. So, like, even if they came out with, like, oh, here's Alexa Bliss's Bendy or whatever, if I don't buy basics, I certainly won't buy a Bendy. If I do buy Bendies right now, and again, there's no proof that I do, it's only because it's like an indie product, and like some of these things you're not going to get like that character in a major line, if that makes sense. But I'm out. I'm good on major bendies.
Well, and that's the
regular bendies. Yeah.
Regular bendies. We were getting a tease on the show this week and on their social media this past weekend. I have a feeling that an Orange Cassidy bendy is coming. I will be a day one purchaser of an Orange Cassidy bendy.
I think you're wrong about that though.
You do.
Because they have never made anybody who was like under an AEW contract.
Okay.
I think the only ones that they've made are people that they quote unquote signed the deal before they signed with AEW or WWE. You know, like the Gargano and the Chelsea ones were, you know, you saw prototypes before they signed with the E. And like there's a lot of AEW talent that like Danhausen was in production before he signed with AEW. You know, so Orange Cassidy's been on contract for a very long time. So
yeah, this summer will be 4 years, and I know it was a 1 year. Then he got a nice bump, not a Rob Liefeld bump, but again,
yeah.
I want. It'll be interesting to see if maybe there was like a little bit of a loophole, but I still have my hopes that we're going to get an OC bendy.
Oh, like 100%. I would buy, you know, at least two of them, one to get signed, one to keep like mint on card. I would buy every store exclusive. Don't get me wrong. I'd buy them all in a heartbeat, but I don't think it's going to happen just because he was at the Major Bendy's booth signing autographs this past weekend, like an hour. I don't think that means there's going to be one. I hope I'm wrong, but if I was a betting man, I'd say it's not happening.
So
maybe he'll get I was going to say maybe he'll get a big rubber guy.
Oh, there you go.
But the other bit of news, since we're now like a toy wrestling or a toy news website, is I don't know if you saw Hasbro announced today that they are caving to collectors' pressure and the windows in boxes will be returning.
Yes, there was, you know, that pre-Eternia guy was the one who broke the story, and he included the email that he got from the Hasbro rep. I don't know if you saw that.
Yep. Yeah, and this is according to the email. It's affecting G.I. Joe Classified, Power Rangers Lightning Collection, Star Wars Black Series, Marvel Legends. Hopefully, it doesn't say it in that email, but hopefully that'll also apply to Transformers. And that will be like all of the toy lines that I collect that have been affected, you know?
Right, so it's not starting until 2024, number one.
Well, no, it says beginning later this year and
okay.
2024. So probably just stuff that hasn't yet been mocked up and put into production, you know?
That'll get me to buy some Marvel Legends.
Yeah, there's been Marvel Legends I've already passed on because of the stupid cardboard box.
I absolutely would have gotten Quantumania Kang if it was in the bubble package.
Yeah. So, like, this is good news for people like you and me, you know, and also, you know, DJ mentioned over on We Need Wrestling that he, you know, he's a guy who rips open figures, but he bought a Marvel Legends sight unseen, like didn't know how big it was. What was it, Howard the Duck?
Yep.
And opened the box to find out that it was like super tiny because there was no in-scale picture on the box. So it affects everybody, and fuck the environment. That's what I say. You know.
And the other thing, of course, is with the, you know, the non-windowed packaging. At the very least, you could see if something was been tampered with or missing or damaged or whatever it looks like. With those windowless boxes, you know, that could be something that got restocked. And you buy one thing and somebody resealed the package and put something else in it, or you get something that's in the box that's like damaged or just looks shitty in general, which does happen. There's like paint application mistakes that happen, and there's no way for you to see that in those boxes, right?
No, yeah, 100%. And it's like for me, if I'm going to keep things sealed, and let's say 5 years later I go to sell it, and the guy who buys it is an opener, a Lucy collector, then they're the ones that are learning. And meanwhile, I had something in my collection for all these years that was defective or not the right thing, you know? So I think it's best for everybody. And like, how much plastic are you really fucking wasting with a little plastic window?
Exactly.
So, but yeah, that's some good news. And so I will just say before we get to the update that everybody wants to hear. For me, weekly purchases, I made one purchase, Joe.
Oh, my goodness.
It was a tiny purchase. One might even say it was a wee purchase. I bought the micro brawler of Dylan Hornswoggle Postal that went up for order on Pro Wrestling Tees this past week. Did you see this, Joe?
I did not.
This is Swoggle as AJ Styles.
Oh, they talked about that on the show this week. Okay.
Yeah. So they did. They made I don't know how many ever they made, but they put 400 up for sale, and it was limit 2 per person. And there is like a chase, and they said it was like there's 50 chases. So I think you have a 1 in 8% or 1 in 8 chance of getting a chase. So I ordered the maximum of 2. And they sold out like the first day. So I'll get the 2. Maybe I'll get a chase and a regular. If I don't, I'll just sell the extra regular one, because they're sold out. So I'll make my money back at least.
For sure.
But yeah, so I got I forget what they call them on the micro brawler. It's got like a name. It doesn't actually say Hornswoggle. It says like, I'm trying to bring up the picture.
Is it Little Dill?
No, it's a pun on AJ Styles. Oh, I think it says the wee nominal one. Instead of phenomenal one, it says wee nominal. Something like that. But I was like, all right, that's funny. But that's all I got. That's literally the only thing I bought this week.
All right. Well, we have to do our follow-up from last week, huh?
We do. And I'm sure, Joe, I haven't looked all week. I'm sure the numbers have just skyrocketed.
Well, I didn't see what the numbers were last week, right? But as we recorded and, I opened up the page and I just hit refresh here, 8 more people have purchased or backed the World Wrestling Entertainment Ultimate Edition WCW Monday Nitro entrance stage. Now, again, there's still a month left, but they had their goal that by the end of the day on Friday, that if it reaches 5,000, that you'll also get the additional Nitro debut Hulkamaniac figure, right?
Yeah.
So that's if it hits 5,000 by tomorrow.
So let me just, before you go any further, I'll just give you some clarity. Last week when we recorded, it was approaching 25% funded, which I believe mathematically that would be around 1,250 backers. So my math is like what we got, like 400 cents then, 450.
It went from 25% back to 34% backed.
Okay, so. Yeah,
I don't think this is happening.
Well, we 1,000% are not getting the Hogan. There's zero chance that this is getting another 3,300 people by tomorrow night. That's not happening.
Listen, how many credit cards can Chelsea's sick and in the hospital. Poor Chelsea, by the way. I don't want to say that Broski's trying to kill her, but I just did. I don't know how many credit cards she has laying around, right?
Yeah. I do think we got 34%, and I don't mean it got 34% in a week. We have a month left. I think it will absolutely limp its way to 5,000. I don't think, number one, we 100% are not going to get the Hogan. You're not getting the Warrior at 11,000. You're not getting the Scott Steiner at 9,000. I'm relatively certain you're not getting the DDP at 7,000, but are you going to say that you're not going to get another, what do we need, another 3,300 people in a month? Yeah, it'll limp over because you have to realize Ringside's going to buy a bunch like they did with the New Gen. Entertainment Earth's going to buy a bunch. Big Bad Toy Store's going to buy a bunch. And I'm not talking thousands, but they had hundreds of the New Gen arenas up for sale on their websites. So I think at some point there's going to be an influx from that. And yeah, it will limp its way past, you'll get like 5,100, 5,500, something like that, but that'll be it.
I say by the end of the day tomorrow, it breaks 2,000. Okay.
Conceivably, a last-minute rush to try to get the Hogan.
Because, obviously it rolled out last week, and some people get paid last Friday, and some people get paid this Friday, right?
Yeah.
So they may not have been able to hit it last week because they were in between paydays. They might be able to get it this week because it's their payday, right?
Sure.
And I know they did the Instagram Live, and they showed everything, and here they showed what the full Warrior cape looks like, and the Rey Mysterio entrance jacket. and they showed all the soft goods and all the extra stuff that it comes with, and they were really selling that this, even if you don't have the space for this thing, it in of itself is a shelf for your figures anyway. I don't think this is hitting 5,000. I think it's going to hit 2,000, and then you are going to see a lot of people just like give up on it. Like, it not hitting 5,000 in a week is going to crush a lot of people, and it's going to take the wind out of the sails of this whole campaign.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I think we have 29 days left. I think it'll eventually creep there, but I could be wrong, and I think that's an interesting thing. Obviously, we're not going to dedicate 10 minutes to it every single week, but I think it's a silly little bit to check in on it. I say it'll just barely reach 5,000. You say it's going to get another 1,000 tomorrow or something, or it's going to reach 2,000 tomorrow, and then kind of hit a wall. I think there are a certain segment of the population that are still waiting to get their taxes back. A lot of wrestling fans that had a very expensive weekend this past weekend that might take a week or two to recover from it. Because people were planning for Mania weekend for a year, and this thing kind of snuck up on them. So maybe they need some time to kind of catch up on their bills. I think it'll get to 5,000, but we'll see.
We'll peek at it every week, and as Adam mentioned, we're not going to spend 10 minutes every week. We're not going to spend 40 minutes on it every week.
Yeah,
but this is all our fault, by the way.
I know we did this, but I will just say, if it gets to like 5,000, but it's literally just Rey Mysterio on the stage, as I said last week, I'm out.
Yeah.
So there's any doubt,
totally not work it.
Nope. But I think that's it for me, Joe.
I think that's everything. Hey, and we got no homework to record, so I can go to bed at a reasonable time.
Absolutely.
All right, hey.
So I got nothing.
I was going to say, are you even allowed to watch baseball in the baseball that you want to in the area that you're in?
Well, the Yankees game got rained out today, so all that was left is a couple West Coast games, but I think they might be over by now.
And I know, we talked before during the phone call segment about cheap baseball games, and I know it's early in the season, and we were passing on the way to DC this past week. Is Camden Yard Baltimore's deal? Camden Yard is Baltimore's deal, right?
Correct.
Are they still super cheap on tickets?
They're reasonable. Like, they're one of those things where, like, if the Yanks are in town, if, like, Shohei Ohtani and Trout are in town, if, like, marquee teams are coming in, they sell out pretty well. But, like, most games you can get, like, a bleacher or, like, a cheap seat for like $15-20.
Yeah, and I know I saw a lot of that last season. A lot of people like in the northeastern area were like, holy shit, like not only is it like a super cheap seat, but like the Orioles were okay last year, not great, but okay.
Yeah, they're a team on the upswing. They're actually a decent team. And the last Yankee game I went to was in Camden Yards.
Yeah, and that it's a really nice park as well.
It is. It's a sketchy as fuck neighborhood, but the park itself is really nice.
Listen, I drove through the heart of DC this past weekend. Y'all need to man up, right?
Well, when like sketchy thieves see you, they're like, "Oh, he's one of us. Leave him alone."
Exactly. All right. I just want to get one last baseball shot in there. Again, thank you everyone very much for listening and supporting us. Everything. And this was episode 236 of At Odds with Wrestling. For Adam, this is Joe saying be safe out there and enjoy some wrestling.
You're listening to the soon-to-be-named network, the Lamborghini of podcast networks.